Crafting in Age of Decadence is a useful way to expand your tactical options and to just increase your overall capability in combat. The first thing you need to do is check your crafting skill and see what kind of technologies you have access to. Right now I have crafting level 3, and with that I can access hardened edge, serrated edge, and it also improves some other techniques I had previously in masterwork armor. And as you can see, each level unlocks new techniques or improvements added here at each point. Now I have access to ironworking. Now I have hardened armor. I'm going to undo this change for now. So the first thing you need to do is decompose some items to get materials to craft with. I've already gathered several materials from combats previously with this character. I'm about halfway through the first town with this character at this point. I'm a mercenary with pretty much full combat stats just to make this easier. So I have a lot of armor that I can craft with at this point. Let's go ahead and check the decomposition. If I decompose this bronze armor, I get 7.4 pounds of bronze to work with. So I can decompose it now, or in the case of this demonstration, there's sort of an understated feature in the game that it bases the amount of metal you get from decomposition on your crafting skill. So let's up it to level 4 and then check the decomposition. Now it's at 7.7 pounds. So let's go ahead and decompose this. So right now I have 9.7 pounds of bronze. After decomposing metal, you need to check with the blacksmith, which is located near the Merchant's Plaza. The best shortcut is go into the tavern, and then the blacksmith tends to be right here. So let's talk to him and get the schematics. You can see the 3 types of armor schematics available from this blacksmith: leather, light metal, and heavy metal. This character I have is definitely not a leather user. Leather users are mostly dodge characters. So I could either go with light metal or heavy metal in this instance. And I'm taking heavy metal, and then we'll see how it lines up with my character. That's one of the most important things to check when crafting, is how it lines up with your character's action points, as armor has an action point limit. So heavier armors will only give you a certain amount of action points per combat round. My character is a 10 action point character, so we're going to go ahead and check the schematics. There are 4 available from the heavy armor list I bought. Imperial armor is 8 AP, no good. Ordu armor, 9 AP. 9 AP Praetor armor, so that's also no good. It's also important to note that sometimes there are situations where sacrificing AP for more damage resistance is worth it, but usually that's a very limited basis, and you'll want to switch back immediately to your full action points, otherwise you severely limit your damage potential. And the best armor for this character looks like the Lorica Musculata, which is 10 AP, 6 DR at the base level. Go back, we have 4 crafting at this point, so that has access to ironworking, but I don't have enough iron to actually make an iron Lorica. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and make a bronze. It's pretty cheap. So we're going to decompose another armor to get enough materials. You can see at the bottom I have 17.4 pounds, and I need 20. So we got to keep decomposing. Now I have enough, so let's check the techniques. It's always best to add techniques to crafted armor, otherwise it's basically the same stuff you buy. Now at this point I only have access to 1 technique, which is Masterwork, and that reduces the dodge penalty. While my character is a block character, so the dodge penalty is completely irrelevant. So this is basically just a base 6 armor, and it's no good to me at this point. So what we're going to do is check our crafting skill. and see that at the next level we unlock a second technique and hardened armor. So let's go ahead and do that, and then go back to our crafting screen. We have hardened now, which is much more useful. I can also tack on the masterwork, but again, it's still not very useful for this character. In the same way as the decomposition increased gradually as I upgraded my levels in crafting, so do the bonuses to the techniques. You see the masterwork penalties are now minus 40, but you'll recall from the previous screen it was minus 35%. So I'll tack it on anyway. Now we create it, and I have my armor. Crafting, the actual process, is very simple. It's mostly the thought process behind it that's important. So at this point, I did upgrade to level 5, so now I have iron. I didn't have enough iron to make an armor suit, but I do have enough to make a nice hammer. My character uses hammers, and you can see this hammer is speed 4, which gives me, with power attacks, 5 AP cost, so I can use 2 power attacks with this character per turn. So that's why I like this particular hammer choice for this character. So we're going to go back to our crafting screen, decompose some iron weapons, and get what we need to go ahead and make a nice iron hammer. But as you can see, I don't have a weapon schematic, so that's another thing you got to remember to plan out, is to have enough money and materials to get schematics and materials to craft with. So we'll go ahead and grab weapons, hammers. All weapons cost 50 gold. Back to our crafting screen in the inventory, which is a tab on the top right. Go ahead and select the Marculus, which is the hammer of choice for this character. It's also important to consider that actual crafted materials, especially with weapons, is cheap, so it can be worthwhile to go ahead and craft several types of weapons. That way you can pick different ones for the situation. Maybe sometimes you need more raw damage, so it's better to have a higher damage, slower weapon, whereas I just tend to stick with, at the default, the lowest level, and then that way I can always pick different weapons later on. So we have enough iron at the bottom, as you can see here, and now we add techniques. Hardened Edge is armor piercing, basically. It does verse damage resistance +2, so what that means is, if this armor here, for example, is DR3, then if I were to attack an enemy with a DR3 armor with a plus DR2 weapon, then his armor is only effectively DR1. So that is a huge addition to your damage. We'll do the same with the Masterwork technique, which is just plus 1-to-1 raw damage, 1 on the max, 1 on the minimum. And we'll go ahead and create it. Now we have a pretty nice hammer. Let's go ahead and compare these items to the ones that I already had. I had this Segmentata, which is okay, but not very good for later in the first town. Whereas the crafted armor is DR7, which doesn't seem like a significant upgrade maybe from the outside, especially without familiarity of the system. But as I mentioned before, crafting is an incremental process, so each incremental upgrade will allow you to further enhance your tactical options and give you a big edge in combat that you might not realize in a one-on-one fight, but against groups of opponents, it's definitely a factor. My original hammer was just a base 6 to 10, but you can see that the iron is 9 to 13. Different materials have different base damages, so each graduation in material, either iron, blue steel, or more exotic materials than that, will have a higher level of base damage in addition to your techniques. Let's go ahead and compare them just to some generic vendor items. This is the basic hammer that's iron, so you can see that has a base of 8 to 12. Mine has 9 to 13, but you have to remember the damage resistance, which will cut through opponent's armor. Look at the musculata and just see what the blacksmith has available. He doesn't have armor anywhere near this class. I could grab the segmentata, but what's the point of spending the money for it? It's 225 gold when I have all of this material that I've gotten from combats and I can craft it myself. And this is especially true for dodge characters, as dodge characters really do take advantage of that masterwork reduction in dodge penalty, whereas block characters, it's not so significant. So just remember that in Age of Decadence, incremental bonuses like crafting help your character survive really tough combats, especially early on in the game in the town of Terran, where the combats are the hardest for newbies. Thank you.